Hey, welcome back to the Building HVAC Science podcast, where we're working to help create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance pros. We think we can achieve this by helping the two professions better understand and work together. And the ultimate goal is to help our listeners create better environments for all people. Going back, I felt that many technicians leave a job with doubts or a bad feeling about what could go wrong because they might have missed something. For these reasons and a few others, I started the Building HVAC Science podcast and happy now to co-host it with Eric Kaiser. Hey, in today's episode, Chief Engineering Officer Kevin Weaver from SmartAC joins us to talk about going beyond remote monitoring and explaining how SmartAC is really a loyalty and trade intelligence platform for residential HVAC. Now, with 3 simple wireless sensors, supply air or comfort sensor for temperature and humidity, a filter sensor with temperature and static pressure, and a water sensor, plus a cloud-connected hub, SmartAC can track delivered capacity and trends, those changes over time. That minimum viable data set lets contractors catch problems early by reporting it to them so they can prioritize the right calls and give homeowners peace of mind without needing full remote diagnostics. Kevin walks us through the tool set, which includes a white-labeled homeowner app so you, if you're a contractor, can have your brand on this app, and a partner dashboard that integrates with many field service management software systems like ServiceTitan. And this is resulting in fewer emergency visits, healthier memberships, and durable customer relationships. He also previews a little bit of the Gen 2 hardware, and we get some wisdom back from Kevin's Texas A&M research that even great designs can fail due to poor execution. So let's get into this episode with Kevin Weaver from SmartAC, talking about 3 sensors, 1 strategy, making maintenance truly smart.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Building HVAC Science podcast. Eric Kaiser here, the great Bill Spohn right over there, virtually, of course, today. And special guest in the studio today, we have Mr. Kevin Weaver from SmartAC. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great.
Yeah, great to have you. I believe we had Josh Tinkle on back in episode 136 to discuss this as well. And you're going to talk a little bit about some different aspects of SmartAC today. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to dive into some nerdy stuff and maybe get a little techie.
Nice.
Yeah, we like nerdy and techie stuff around here. We got a lot of nerdy and techie listeners, and we love them all. So let's get to know a little bit about you, Kevin. Where have you been? How did you end up where you are today? Just the highlights.
So Kevin Weaver, title is Chief Engineering Officer, SmartAC.com. My background is mechanical engineering, bachelor's and master's from the one and only Texas A&M University, Gigamags. So I specialized in my master's study in residential energy and residential HVAC, and I actually did my graduate research in residential airflow. So you could say I was engaged in HVAC from the jump. Undergrad mechanical engineering is super broad. It's 5 miles wide, but 100 feet deep. And so it really wasn't until grad school that I got deep into the energy side and the thermo side and realized I really dug it. And then saw these applications in residential HVAC. And so from there, I actually went to work for a startup who did demand side energy efficiency in super complex buildings like pharmaceutical laboratories and military hospitals. We would go in and design energy retrofit projects to help those buildings save on their very extensive energy expenditures. And so did that for a couple of years and was actually down in Houston, ran into a friend from college. And he said, what you've been doing is exactly what my company wants to get into. And I was looking to make a change. So I joined a little building automation and controls company that was called TAC. And we did what we call a start in, where we started a demand side retrofit program there. And they eventually got picked up by Schneider Electric, a real big ship, Fortune 500 company. And from there, my career took a topsy-turvy, wiggly line path into all kinds of areas, managing P&Ls and doing technical business development. But eventually, my friend and our CEO, Andy Fuselier, reached out and said, hey, we're working on this thing and we think that your background could be really helpful. Would you have any interest in being an advisor for us? And as soon as I got a sense of what they were doing, my interest was piqued, and that's how it started. So I was an advisor for about a year and a half and then joined full time over 5 years ago. So you could say I've been here from the jump.
That's a pretty amazing story. Our listeners may be familiar with SmartAC, but I think it'd be a good idea to set the framework. What is it? What does it do? Where is it deployed? How long has it been around?
Yeah, so smartac.com on the face of it looks like a remote monitoring solution for residential HVAC. And in a lot of ways, we still are. We use very easy to deploy wireless sensors to track HVAC health and give peace of mind to homeowners, and by association, optimize their experience to be retained with contractors. But we early on realized it's a lot more powerful than just the monitoring. We realized that we were actually in the game of loyalty management for contractors. If you can empower homeowners with information, and if you can give them digital engagement through an application and an optimized experience, you're going to retain those homeowners long term, which means you're going to have profitable membership plans, and you're going to be able to optimize your labor by only going to a house when it actually needs service and using your critically valuable technician labor in the areas that have the greatest potential. And so we very quickly moved into that identity while also becoming experts in the residential HVAC trade space. And so now we're on the cusp of going one level deeper than that. And really, it's residential trade intelligence. We take in data from multiple sources, our sensors, homeowner data from the app, field service management platform data, even residential HVAC contractor business data. And we throw it all together and produce insights that help contractors run their business as well and help homeowners optimize the experience of home comfort. That's really what we are in a nutshell.
That's a big nutshell.
Yeah, for sure.
It's tremendously interesting, the insights from the HVAC trade intelligence. How does that come out and how do people get access to it?
So a couple of different ways. Obviously, we see that we have two sets of customers. The first is the HVAC contractor. And so for an HVAC contractor, when they start to work with us, they begin to utilize not only our homeowner app, which gets white labeled that they can deploy to their customer base with their brand on it, but we also have a pro app for technicians so that they can have insights information in the field. And then we have a partner dashboard, which is a web environment which contains just layers and layers of useful information about not only the health of the system, but what we're seeing in terms of additional insights. We then go further and integrate with field service management platforms like ServiceTitan so that we can efficiently serve those insights back up to the contractors for action. And our whole idea is we want to help contractors run their businesses as efficiently as possible, which means that we want to minimize the time it takes their folks to understand where they should go and what they should do.
Very good. Could you walk us through the system components? That's the part of the intelligence you're gathering is actual homeowner system information. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, what makes us unique. One of the things that attracted me to joining this company was I had obviously come from a mechanical engineering background. I'd been exposed to a whole lot of engineered solutions where it takes an engineering first mindset, maximum data, maximum sensing variables. And that often results in something that is never commercially viable because it's so expensive to build and so expensive to put in. And I immediately recognized that these guys were going about it a different way. They really looked to capture what I would call the minimum viable data set for deep insights, but they could do it at a price point which did not represent any kind of a barrier to deployment. The cogs that they had on the hardware meant that it could be combined with just about any maintenance plan. And so the specifics there is the core kit is 3 sensors. The first one we call the comfort sensor. That goes on your supply air vent. And that guy's measuring supply air temperature, but also relative humidity. And that's critical because that allows us to have insight into both the sensible component and the latent component that system's producing. Then we've got the filter sensor. That one goes, as the name would imply, behind the air filter in the return air pathway. And that one's measuring temperature and static pressure. So now we've got the supply side, we've got the return side temperature, which means we can tell your vent to vent delta T or performance. And then we've also got insights into airflow coming from that static pressure. And as you guys know well, that's super powerful. Understanding static pressure can tell you all kinds of dynamics around face velocity across your filter and total airflow of the system versus what it was designed to do, et cetera. And then the last component is our water sensor. And if you're like me down here in Texas, we like to put our evaporators up in the attic. And so we've got secondary drain pans in the attic as well. And that's all fine and good until those drain lines clog up. And if you have that happen, all of a sudden you're flooding the ceiling. And unfortunately, a lot of your listeners who are in the South can probably empathize because you walk in one day and you've got a waterfall and a really expensive repair bill. So as the name would imply, that water sensor detects the presence of water and prevents that very terrible experience. But it also has temperature. And so that gives us other insights in whether it's in a basement, whether it's in a crawl space, whether it's in an attic. We can run analysis on things like the quality of the building envelope. We can look at the quality of insulation compared to, say, attic and interior. We can offer freeze protection insights, let you know when those spaces are approaching freezing, etc. So those three sensors are the core places that we're gathering information. Those communicate through proprietary RF with a cloud-connected hub. And the hub really serves as an aggregation function. It's going to aggregate the data coming off the sensors. It's going to package it and pass it to the cloud, where it's then received by our back end.
Cool. One thing you had me on was, I would imagine there's absolutes and relatives in that data set that are important. By relatives, I mean like change data over time.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Bill. And we use both approaches when assessing a system. So the traditional approach, and it's what's used by a lot of solutions out there, is to compare systems to quote unquote healthy, which is great. That'll tell you a lot. But as you guys know, the number of variables in a given system configuration, and especially in a system installation, are many. And so what we find to be very powerful is the relative that you're speaking to. And so a whole lot of what we do is focused on comparing a system against itself, tracking changes over time. So we love to have a healthy baseline on a system. A perfect solution for me, being a technical guy, is to have an initial commissioning done with something like MeasureQuick and have a baseline that I know and can trust. And then we monitor 27/365 and look for changes. And as soon as our data set starts detecting a decline in any performance, our system can raise a flag and say, hey, we got something going on here. And that's really powerful.
That's good.
That's a lot to unpack here. I've got some questions rolling around in the back of my head now from this. I think the first one I'm a little curious about is the hub. And we see periodically, and I've used a lot of other data monitoring systems for my own stuff and whatnot, energy as well as HVAC and things like that. And I'm curious, is there any data storage in that hub for times when we might have an internet outage or something like that that happens, where a lot of times the sensor will lose data?
Yeah, the hub has that capability. Of course, we hope to not have to use it very often, but we can. The hub's actually a really flexible device. It can connect via a number of ways. It can be hardwire Ethernet connected. It can connect via Wi-Fi. So we're pretty flexible to however we can connect and get that data passed on. But yeah, you're right, Eric. That's something we run into.
And another thing comes up with this is like there's a lot of houses out there that may have multiple systems in them or multiple needs for water sensors. Can we put multiple systems on a single hub? What's the wireless distance you're talking with that?
I'll talk version or generations here a little bit. Our current generation, our foundational architecture was we looked at each HVAC system like the patient. So the current generation, each HVAC system gets its own hub and its own set of sensors. Each hub has the capability to support up to 7 sensors. And a lot of our customers will deploy additional water sensors to monitor things like sinks and toilets and washing machines. Anywhere that there's a risk of water, we have a solution to keep an eye on it, which is pretty great. It also allows our contractors to potentially cross-sell into other spaces like plumbing, which is a terrific advantage for them. We're working on our Gen 2, which will not necessarily have the same constraints. And so with that, we have the technical capability to have multiple systems tied into one hub. And because of upgraded things like radios and frequencies, we are a lot more powerful in terms of our transmission capability. So from there, it'll come down to business decision for us. Like, what do we think makes the most sense from a business packaging? But yeah, the technology will support a little bit more flexibility around that.
Very cool. Well, it's nice to see that you're already evolving. And this hasn't been out a ton of time on the market. Of course, with today's marketplaces, a ton of time is relative because things change almost daily. Sometimes it feels like.
Yeah, and we're pretty eager to gather insights from both homeowners and contractors. All three of the founding executives are engineers, mechanical engineers, and then our lead designer is an engineer. So we're all super eager to learn and iterate and progress as fast as we can.
Very cool. What size are we talking about on these sensors? And I'm guessing they've got to be battery powered. So what are we talking about on data or life and things like that for the batteries?
Yeah, they are battery powered. By default, they're powered by AA lithium batteries. With our current config, we're getting 18 months, sometimes better, sometimes worse, depending on individual installation constraints. And even 18 months is acceptable because our thesis is that since most are being deployed along with membership plans, the contractor's probably in the home at least that often and can check on that battery health. We did develop a long life battery pack, which boosts that to 5 to 8 years. It's awesome. That's what I run in my house just because I don't want to think about batteries. So it's a little off-boarded battery pack, which neatly integrates with the sensor and makes it to where you don't have to even worry about batteries very much. The sensors themselves, and if I was ready, I would have one sitting on my desk to show you, but they're just a little bit larger than an AirPod case. I do have my AirPods sitting here, and they're about that same form factor. So a few inches long and a couple inches wide, and they magnetically attach to the vents, and they have a beautiful, clean look to them so that they're not obtrusive when they're installed in the home.
Very cool. I'm guessing that the filter sensor somehow goes inside the duct, or does it have to go through a hole? Do you have to put a hole in there for that?
It goes right behind the air filter. So in other words, on the, I guess we call it negative side of the air filter. And depending on the configuration, we have a number of options. If you've got one of those vertical upflow systems that has that really narrow 1-inch filter gap, we actually have a filter sensor adapter, which allows you to offboard the sensing element so that you can put it in the middle of the air filter and slide it in. So you don't have to jam the sensor in there. We've got solutions for in-system filters as well. But yeah, in general, we want to capture static pressure just on the backside of that air filter.
Very cool. And you said that just measures temperature there. It doesn't do humidity in the return then.
Not the Gen 1, but the Gen 2 will. We have some flexibility with the upgraded where we're going to basically measure everything in every location.
Oh, cool. I'm really curious about the data. You mentioned that you're looking at really the minimum viable data to do something. And I'm curious about the process to narrow that down, because we as technicians sometimes we narrow down to certain data points that we really want to look at. And sometimes we just gather way, way too much data and don't know what to do with all of it. That interests me. What was the process to narrow down and say, this is what we want to look at and this is why?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes us really unique, because if you were to go out and ask most HVAC techs, heck, go ask most HVAC companies what they want, they would tell you they want remotely connected gauges. So it's quite a departure just to say we're going to take 3 little sensors on the air side. But if you cook it down to first principles, cook it down to basic thermodynamics, if we can quantify the delivered capacity on the air side, we can work our way back to what's going on the refrigerant side. It's really just energy balance at the end of the day. And so that's the foundational premise, is let's figure out what's really important to know on the air side of the system to be able to assess the general health of that system. And I think the key thing that we've learned, and it's been confirmed for us again and again, is the real value for us, the contractor and the homeowner. We don't have to diagnose exactly what's wrong. We just have to be able to accurately say there's a problem. Your homeowner doesn't necessarily care that you show up and say, oh, well, we have to replace this specific component in the system. But they do care that something is wrong, and you can accurately say, you have a problem. It's going to impact your comfort in the near future, and this is what needs to be done. We can provide data that proves that out. We can give the homeowner visual and quantitative proof that shows that decline in system performance. And then obviously we can arm the contractor with the insights they need to go take action in a reliable way without having to have full remotely connected gauges.
I liken it to you go seek health professional advice when you feel sick.
Yeah.
But you don't go seek health professional advice with a diagnosis.
That's right.
You still need that interpretation in between. And like Eric said, in the collection of more information, especially on site. But you need to know that they're sick enough that you could do a virtual visit, which I've done, or you need an in-house call where the professional has to see what's going on.
That's exactly right. And so that's kind of our foundational premise, is we need to be really good at detecting when systems have a problem. And we need to be able to tell both the contractor and the homeowner the severity of that problem and let them know if it's worth taking action on now.
How do you get new contractors finding out about your services?
I think a number of ways. So we're pretty active in the trade show space. We're pretty active in the HVAC community. And I think one thing that I learned very quickly is this, although there's 70 million plus homes with central air, this is a fairly tight knit community. Folks tend to know each other and tend to communicate. And so we're fairly active there. We are also getting a lot more active on marketing just to get the word out about what we do. But I think the business grew organically at first, just from relationships and getting to know people and being talked about.
You'd mentioned before about the loyalty aspect. Can you elaborate on that? The customer loyalty as perhaps a benefit for the contractor.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is foundational to both our past success and where we're going in the future. I think a simple fact is that most homeowners really don't care about their AC as long as it's working, and even working is subjective. So as an engineer, I look at a system, and if it's running at 80% of what it was designed to do, that hurts my heart a little bit. But most homeowners, if they are quote unquote cool, they don't care. So it could be running at 50% of what it's designed to do. And if the homeowner's like, well, I'm comfortable, then they don't care. So we learned that as a foundational premise. And what we discovered is what homeowners really care about is experience. They want to have an optimized experience all the way from the data that's available to them, the ease of contacting a contractor when they need to, the rapidity of getting service done, and most importantly, the reliability of having maintenance done such that they avoid a catastrophic breakdown. As the number one thing that a homeowner hates, and I've experienced myself, is it's the first hot week of the summer and your system goes down and you call around and everybody's system has gone down. So contractors are backed up a couple of days and now you're spending the night in an 85-degree house. That's no fun for anybody. And so our promise to homeowners is we're going to give you peace of mind. But if you do need service, we're going to make it really easy for you to get in touch with your contractor of record through things like digital scheduling and chat communication. And I think the biggest thing is what we changed the game on is giving people a direct relationship with a contractor. So most homeowners out there, they don't have a quote unquote HVAC guy. They don't have an HVAC company of record. When they need something, they jump on Google, they jump on their neighborhood Facebook page, they say who's got good reviews, they call up, get scheduled, come out, get a bid, say yes because they have to, and it's transactional. It's a done deal. And so that's what we change through digital engagement, through a long-term relationship. Then we try to make that a customer for life for that contractor. And so that means they don't have to spend piles of money on advertising every year to go capture new customers. They can just keep the ones they have and grow their base of business.
Are there any particular models that contractors use to deploy this? Like, is it a subscription for their customers? Is it free with XYZ? Is it done on a trial basis?
All of the above. I think the most common deployment model is just to combine it with their most successful maintenance plan. And that's our recommendation, is just make all your plans SmartAC enabled. And now you have a smart maintenance plan. Your customer gets sensors in your house. They get an app right on their phone so they can reach out to you if they need to. I would say that's the most common. That represents the most common way that our contractors work with us. We also have contractors who offer monitoring only plans. You get customers who just don't see the value in a maintenance plan. They don't care if you come to their house once or twice a year, but they'll sign up for monitoring only just for that peace of mind that somebody's watching.
Interesting. I want to go back to one thing I made a note of here. You said that these magnetically stick to registers. Do you have a solution? And I think this is probably going to be a question in some people's minds as they listen to this. Do you have a solution for aluminum or plastic registers? Because we are seeing those in the marketplace.
Yeah, we've got a little adapter clip, which can basically clip on to a non-magnetic register. So that's a good shout, Eric, because we basically have a solution for just about every type of register that we see out there.
Without getting into, again, proprietary data, but how's deployment going? How long has it been on the market? What's the uptake been? Have you seen constantly rising bubbles? What's happening?
I'd say we hit high growth stage probably within the last 12 months, maybe 18 months, and deployment is rapidly accelerating. We've hit critical mass. Everybody at least knows about us and is hopefully talking to us. We are knocking on the door of greater than 100,000 homes sold. Obviously, deployment lacks that a little bit, but it's getting pretty exciting technically because from a data perspective, we are now on so many systems that we're covering the spread geographically. We're covering the spread system type and operational dynamic wise. The data set is starting to get super rich. I realized from the beginning that we were building probably the largest HVAC data set in the world. And it's getting to be very fun to just see how extensive that is as we realize all the opportunities we have with it.
So the product/service is available directly from smartac.com.
We really don't use that channel very much. Technically it is, but we're largely B2B2C right now. We're largely working through the contractor channel for now.
That's what I meant. I meant the contractor comes to you.
Absolutely.
And the data set, you can answer this if you can or if you can't. But if you're talking about specific types and installations of equipment and you're gathering a lot of information, if that comes along with the data set, that's pretty powerful for field data from manufacturers.
For sure. Yeah. I think that there will be a future application of us being able to serve insights up into the OEM channel. Today, we can do things like fault correlation analysis. We can correlate the faults and issues we see against things like age of equipment and types of equipment and brands of equipment and geographies of where it's installed. And so I think that that gets increasingly interesting. And I think that certainly OEMs are going to be very curious to understand some of those insights in the future. And the cool thing about it is at that point, it's an anonymized data set. We can take the individual homeowner out of it. We're really just talking HVAC equipment data statistics at that point.
And it used to be, from my experience, that there are a lot of government labs interested in fault detection and diagnostics, FTD. You've been approached by anyone like that you can say?
Not yet. I actually have some contacts at Department of Energy from a past life. And I think DOE is very aware. You guys have probably seen him. DOE's published a number of papers over the years about residential HVAC. There's a great paper they did in 2018, which shows that greater than 60% of systems are installed incorrectly, or let's say non-optimally from the jump. So not yet, but hey, DOE, if you're listening, give me a shout. Let's talk.
I can think of one person that might be. I'll put you in touch.
Great.
I'm a little curious about a couple things here as I've been sitting back here and listening to this. I guess probably the first thing, what's some of the most interesting data that you have personally seen coming out of this? What do you find interesting?
That's a bit of a broad question, so I'll probably have several answers. I would say early on, I think the thing that I was most surprised about was just how quickly we could detect some of those non-optimal installations. Within a handful of days of getting installed on a system, I can pretty rapidly tell if the system was oversized, or maybe if the blowers turned up too high, or if they've got an undersized return. The insights just jump off the page at you when you start having this data. And that was really powerful because we work with a lot of great contractors who want to do as good a job as they can. So to serve that up and to have a rapid feedback loop of, hey, like maybe talk to your technicians about adjusting blower speeds and not just rocking with whatever the default setting was. Or, hey, let's talk about upsizing the size of your returns to limit that face velocity and the pressure loss. That was really fun because I think that's a really high value feedback loop to both contractors and homeowners. These days, I think what I'm finding most interesting is when we take data from multiple sources and throw it together, the type of just compounded insights that we can get is really fascinating. And I'll give you an example. When we have our system data, when we have homeowner behavior data, and when we have data from the FSM layer, we can help contractors to target really a lot more effectively. We can say, hey, here's your systems that actually need service. And then here's the profile of your homeowners who are most likely to say yes to that service. So let's say that you're trying to go fill 50 technician spots. We'll start here. Start with calling these customers because there's real revenue opportunity and there's a high likelihood they'll say yes. And so to me, that moves us into that true platform intelligence space. And I'm excited about that because it's just tremendous potential there for contractors to optimize their businesses, for homeowners across the board. It's going to be a really fun place to play. And I think that's the kind of space that changes the world a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned an acronym there, FSM layer, for everybody. What is that?
Yeah, Field Service Management Platform. So most contracting shops will use a solution like Service Titan just to manage their field activities. And those contain all kinds of data from technician service records to what was billed and invoiced and all of that.
Very good. Best way to reach out to get engaged here to learn more?
SmartAC.com is a terrific place to go.
Okay.
I'm really curious too about your work in airflow in general. You mentioned some graduate work in airflow, and that's fascinating because so much of what we do in conditioning homes especially is airflow based. What are some good insights you can impart to our listeners about airflow in general?
Man, we could probably talk for 5 hours just on this.
Reschedule.
I did my graduate research comparing a little product called Flex Duct to rigid metal duct. So this was the early 2000s, and Flex Duct had been on the scene for a little while, but there was, let's say, some challenges. So basically, when it comes to airflow, it's about designing not only the system, but also designing the duct system and all parts of the duct system to optimize. And so what I mean by that is you could have a terrific HVAC installer who runs an Aqua Manual J and does a great job sizing the system to the demands of the house. But if your duct system subcontractor goes in and puts an undersized return grill on and maybe tries to use a wall chase for the return air and then uses undersized flex duct that's all compacted and looks like an octopus, that system is not going to work well from the jump. You could have a terrifically and optimally sized system and a really quality piece of equipment, and it's not going to deliver well for the homeowner, and it's going to be a headache for the contractor. I think insights on airflow is just be mindful. In general, less static pressure loss is better. So let's make sure that we're using adequately sized returns. Let's make sure we're using large trunk lines and sizing duct runs to meet the demands of the space. Let's make sure we're stretching that flex duct and doing things like installing collars and mastic to limit leaks. And in general, let's get all the capacity out of that system.
So what you're saying here is even the best design can be screwed up at installation?
Indeed, sir.
So, yeah, I mean, we've got to have good execution. We have to have good execution at every step on this. We can do the best possible design, but if it's not executed in the field at the same level as the design was, it's probably going to be a problem there.
That's it. And I think that's where contractors have a real opportunity to separate themselves from maybe some of the competition, is just following through on things like initial install execution and startup commissioning and catching some of those problems early. That ensures a great experience for all involved.
In your knowledge, you've ever had a consumer pull through a contractor to you?
What do you mean by that?
Like a consumer found out about what you do and was like, hey, I want one of those. Where do I get it?
We have had a couple examples of that. Yeah. So like the consumer hears about us from a friend or reads about us in an article, and they approach the contractor and say, hey, are you guys offering this SmartAC thing? And then the contractor reaches out to us. And obviously we love those folks. So HVAC nerds of the world unite. Keep talking.
We love those indoor comfort nerds.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Eric, any other questions?
I'm sure I could stand here and just ask all kinds of questions, but...
Is that why you're sitting? So you won't?
Well, at the moment I'm standing.
Oh, you are? Okay. Kevin, any closing thoughts for our listeners?
I would just tell your listeners, if you can't tell, we're pretty excited about the opportunity here. We think that through intelligence, we have the opportunity to make everything better. We can make contractor businesses more profitable and more efficient. We can make homeowner experiences just so much more pleasant, limit surprises and bring them transparency and really ease of use to optimize their comfort experience. And it comes with other benefits. It's a good thing for the environment. The OEMs are going to like it because their equipment's going to be maintained better and operate better. We think that there's a tremendous opportunity to just really revolutionize residential HVAC for the betterment of all.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. And listeners, will put a few links in the show notes so you can pick up information. And Kevin, it's been a real pleasure. When you get some of your next developments going, whatever that time period is, please hit us up again to give us an update.
Would love to. I feel like we scratched the surface on some really fun stuff.
Fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate you listening to this podcast, this Building HVAC Science podcast. If you have any questions or want to suggest a topic, reach out to us at marketing@trutechtools.com. That's TRUTECHTOOLS.com. Now, some of the topics we discuss require technical training for proper interpretation or safe execution. So if you're a trained pro, you can proceed immediately. If you're not, please consult with a trained pro and hire one. The Building HVAC Science podcast is a production of TruTech Tools Limited. In full disclosure, I'm the owner of TruTech. And the opinions expressed are those of my guests, my co-host, or myself, depending on who's speaking, of course. And if you're in the market for any tools or test instruments mentioned in our podcast, or just those in general, take a look at what TruTechTools.com offers. You can use the offer code HVACBS for a nice discount. I want to thank you for listening to and hopefully following us on Building HVAC Science. If you're not subscribed to our podcast, please consider doing so. We appreciate you as a listener, and we hope to have you come back again listening to more episodes on the Building HVAC Science podcast. Take care.